I am originally from Chicago. Grew up on the west side, went to high school on the south side. I have to make that difference because sometimes people think I'm from the south side because of where I went to school. But grew up on the west side and went to Simeon High School. I am a 1989 graduate at Simeon. And when I left there in 89, I was a McDonald's All-American. I was a parade All-American. I was the number 3 player in the nation behind Kenny Anderson and Shaquille O'Neal. So did a pretty good doggone job when I was playing. A lot of the, these made up things that you see about best players in the state or best players in the city or from the city, I'm normally included in that, and that incorporates a whole lot of really, really good players over the history of basketball in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois.
As a senior in high school, you were named Mr. Basketball. What did that mean to you?
Well, it meant that you were the best to come out of the state. And anytime you can be the best, I think every person playing a sport or doing anything in their life, they always strive to be the best. And that meant that I was the best player in the state of Illinois at that time. And that said a lot because there were a lot of great players, especially during my era. You had Jamie Brandon, you had Juwan Howard. There was just so many guys from all over the city, and not to mention the rest of the state. So to be recognized as the best player in the state was very important to me.
What was it like playing with Shaq?
I'll give you a little story, first and foremost, to describe that. Of course, being out of the city of Chicago and playing in the Chicago Public League, that's a badge of honor. Sometimes winning the Chicago Public League was more important than winning the state championship. So I went up against guys that were NBA caliber guys my whole life. Even when I started playing basketball, from the summer leagues to the high schools, always went up against guys that were high level players. So I get to my senior year, McDonald's All-American, get to Kansas City, and I meet this big dude named Shaquille O'Neal. And so they put us on the same team, and before our first practice, he comes over to me, one of the biggest dudes I've ever been next to, until I stood next to Kofi Colbert. But he come over, he say, "Big bro." He was like, "I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do in practice." And I'm like, "Okay," because you hear these things all the time. There was another player named Matt Winstrom. Matt was the number 1 player in Texas. Shaquille O'Neal was the number 2 player in Texas. I don't know how they worked that out, but that's the way it was. So he was like, "I'm going to get the ball in the post. I'm going to elbow Matt. I'm going to knock him to the floor. I'm going to dunk it, and I'm going to make the ball hit him in the face." Now, you hear people talk stuff all the time, but literally, we run this drill. He goes down to the other end of the court. He dunks it. He comes back. Matt's playing defense on him. He elbows him, knocks him to the floor, dunks the ball hits Matt in the face and busts his nose. And they had to take Matt out of the practice for the rest of practice. So later on that evening in my hotel, I called my older brother and I told him, I was like, "You remember this name, Shaquille O'Neal, because that dude's going to be a star." So does that answer that question on what it's like to play against Shaquille O'Neal or play with? Now, I still hold the record against Shaquille O'Neal. We are 1-0. When Shaquille O'Neal was playing at LSU, they came here to Champaign, and we beat them. Shaq, of course, did his thing. I played really well, but we walked away with the W, and that's the most important thing.
So as a senior in 1988, you guys went to the state title. You led your team, Chicago Simeon, but you fell. What did that mean?
Well, it was a hard loss, and it was a hard loss because normally, as I mentioned earlier, winning the city championship made you feel especially the best team in the city. And then sometimes that was more important than getting downstate, at least in your mind, until you actually do it. So I remember driving up when we got here and seeing Assembly Hall then, but seeing the State Farm Center Assembly Hall then for the first time, and it looked like this giant spaceship. So you get a totally different feeling than you do when you're only in Chicago playing against the Chicago Public League. But it was a tough loss. It was a tough loss to eat. It was a tough loss because of my competitive nature. I knew Eric Anderson, of course, and that St. Francis de Sales team was really good. But we should have won that game. And we led that game. We controlled it, most of the game. And then to lose it because of some missed free throws from some really good free throw shooters on our team was crushing. And, it's always hard to in your high school career or any other part of your career, but that was crushing for me because I felt that we should have won that game. I was always a scorer. When I first started playing basketball, which was not until I was a freshman in high school, I will have to say it was a God-given talent with some great teachers along the way. Bob Hambrick, of course, Irvin Small, who played here at Illinois. But to be able to come in here behind a long line of great players and to break Eddie Johnson's record at that time was, amazing. Now, I will say this, I'd give it up for some Big Ten championships or Final Four or any of those things that some of those other teams had the joy of doing, but I owe it all to my teammates. None of this happens if you don't have a good team, if you don't have a coach that believes in you. The coaching staff believed in me, and they felt that I was the number one option during 3 of the 4 years that I was here. And I'm just blessed. It's a blessing to be able to do that. And I can easily say, I hope someone breaks this thing one day so I can do what Eddie Johnson did for me. Eddie Johnson is class. Class, class, class. It's the only words you can use to describe that man. And when I broke his record, he called me and congratulated me on breaking his record. And I only hope to be able to do the same thing, for a player that comes along and breaks the record. This university has turned out a ton of great players throughout its history. And to be recognized as one of its top 100 players, to be included in that all-century team with guys like Eddie Johnson, to be included with the Nick Andersons, Kendall Gills, all of these people that I watched coming up, the Derek Harpers. It says a lot. It says a lot about the hard work I put in. It says a lot to give tribute to my teachers and the other players that helped me get to where I am. Because without those guys, I'm not on that all-century team. So it means a lot, not just to me personally, but it means a lot to be able to honor my teammates and the people that taught me this game. And those that, didn't make it. Let's talk about the walk-on guys, Steve Roth and some of the other guys that I had to go against all 4 years here at Illinois. Because people don't give the walk-ons a lot of credit, but I will. Because those are the guys that battle you day in and day out, and they help you get better. So when I do step on the court, when the time comes where those points count, it's all owed to those guys that helped me get there.
What was your time like playing in Israel?
My time in Israel was amazing. I don't know, but I'm assuming many of your listeners know. I met my wife in Spain. My wife is Israeli. So to be able to go there and play for Maccabi Tel Aviv, to be able to play for the other teams that I played for there, to be able to spend that time with her family was amazing because it was like being at home. It was like being with a group of people that really took me in and loved me like my own family. And then as far as the fans, some of the best fans in the world. I could not tell you. They're on par with my Orange Crush. And I hold the Crush near and dear to my heart. But the Maccabi Maniacs, man, and you walk into that gym and you got 20 to 30,000 people wearing blue and gold, which was my Simeon colors as well, did nothing but add extra hype to that. So it was amazing playing in Israel. It's one of the best places in the world, not just, for basketball, but for the food, the people, the experience. Some of the best beaches in the world. And one of the greatest things, when I left Spain, where in Spain we practiced twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. We practiced once a day in Israel. So I really got a chance to enjoy and learn all that I could from that too. So it was an amazing experience, and one that I wish more players, which we've had a lot of Illinois guys go there and play, but one that I wish everyone could experience the way that I did.
You were drafted 28th overall by the Dallas Mavericks. What did that mean to you?
Well, again, every time we talk about being recognized for your hard work and the things that you do, being drafted 28 was an amazing experience. That night was a night filled with ups and downs because, there were people that had me going higher, lower. I had some false phone calls from my agent saying, okay, you're going to go now. And then they end up taking someone else. It was an emotional roller coaster, but to be able to share that time with my grandmother, with Jimmy Collins and his family, who was my family, but to be able, and the people, others that were there, my friends and teammates that were there sharing it with me, was amazing. I never played basketball with the hopes or the ideas of getting into the NBA. But through hard work and great coaching, that's what happened. And it was a pleasure, and I'm very proud of being drafted to the Dallas Mavericks. You know, being able to work at Lewis and Clark, being its athletic director, being its head coach for 5 years, and being able to shape the lives of the young men that I coach, and not just the young men that I coach, because as an athletic director, you touch the lives of all the students. It was truly an honor for me. Because I think basketball and sports are just that. They're microcosms of life. Coaches are put there to help the young people grow and get better and be productive human beings. And I think I did that during my time at LC. And then to go on to coach at UIC for the couple of years that I did that was another step up to be able to help young men at that time, because it was only men's basketball that I was involved in, but to be able to help those young men continue to grow. A lot of those young men from both teams, both Lewis and Clark as well as UIC, they still call me today. We're still in touch today. So those are the things that you want when you're coaching. And as I decided to transition out of coaching, to get the call from Illinois Athletics and be able to come here and analyze on the radio what's going on the court, and to be able to share that vision of what's happening on the radio, of course, because when you're on TV, as I was with the Big Ten Network, you can see a lot of what's going on. On the radio, you can't, so you really have to paint a picture to give people an idea of what's really happening, and I think Brian and I do a great job at that, but it's an honor to really be able to come back here and represent this university, represent those players by announcing what they do. And I think my coaching, my work as an athletic director, as a player, gives me a little bit more insight to be able to share with the fans, and I'm just happy. I get a lot of compliments and people enjoy listening to it, so Brian and I must be doing a pretty good job. Well, what Coach Underwood has done, and I say it's in 2 years, some people say it was 3 years, but from where we were when he took over this program to in his second year, having the most losses in university history with 21, and then flipping that around the very next year to what we should have been in the tournament. We should have been a higher seed and would have been a higher seed in the Big Ten tournament. And then I think we go on and have a really good chance of winning the Big Ten tournament and then going into the NCAA tournament with a high seed. So to see him turn it around that quickly, to be able to put his stamp on what he has, and lay it down the way he wants it to go, and to see the players that have come in and that are coming in now, you can't do anything but take your hat off to a great coaching job, and that's what he's done. And then let's fast forward. After those years you battle through, you have a couple of good years, then your whole staff leaves. And then to watch what he has done with this year's team, putting the staff together, has been nothing short of amazing. We lose 3 really good coaches. We bring in 3 really good coaches. The recruiting continues, and what I believe even get better. And this team right now that we have on paper is one of the best teams that we've probably ever had here at the University of Illinois, with size, strength, agility, athletic, length. I mean, we have all of the pieces. Now we just have to give some time to grow, those guys to grow and really fill out what they'll be able to do here in the future.
You broke your leg in 2005 in the Final Four, in the NBA Final Four. What did it prevent you from doing?
Well, first of all, that's a great question. That's not a question that I normally get, because people look at what you do and not what injuries or these things can stop from doing. So when I broke my leg, as we were going into the Final Four of the EuroLeague Championship, it was a setback for me. And it was a setback because there were a lot of teams that were contacting me at the time because I had had a really good season. And as also having an Israeli passport, I was able to play as what they call a Bosman player. So I could play on, say, a Russian team or a German team or somewhere else as a foreign player. I mean, not a foreign player, but as a national player, and not be counted as a foreign player. So what did it stop me from doing? My agent was actually in negotiations with CSKA Moscow, which is one of the biggest teams in Europe, like Maccabi is. And I wasn't going to leave Maccabi. I'll be frank with saying that, but it would have given me a bargaining chip. It gives you something in your pocket to be able to use and bump those numbers up for what you would have been paid. So it did put I believe, kind of a damper on future earnings at some point, but it didn't stop me overall. I mean, I played another 4 or 5 years after that. I wasn't as athletic before, but I think that was more mental than it was physical. But I still ended my career on a very good note.
Favorite part to being the radio broadcaster for the Fighting Illini?
Well, there's a few of them. And let's just start off by saying working with Brian Barnhart and Ed Bond. I mean, I think our team that we've been able to form is tremendous. Brian has helped me to learn this business, to understand what it means to be a professional at this level, and to be able to, get the message across to the fans that I want. But one of the best things, and probably the best thing, is the fact that I get to still stay connected to the team. I get to stay connected to the game. I get to be, an encyclopedia for those guys on the team now, to be able to bounce ideas off and give them my experiences to be able to help them. So it's really allowing me to be, I guess, a coach without necessarily being a coach to the guys that are currently on the team, the ones before them, and hopefully the players that are going to come in the future. Well, my favorite moment has to be as we're coming out of the shell of the struggles that we were having with Coach Underwood. It would have to be the win over Michigan State here at the State Farm Center. And when we did that and all of the kids rushed the floor, the Orange Crush rushed the floor, I wanted to rush the floor, but since I was on the call, I couldn't rush the floor. But that would probably have to be one of the biggest moments so far. But I would also like to add 2 others. And this goes back to when we were talking about, being the all-time leading scorer and things of that nature. I had Georgie Vajanisvili break one record, and then I had Kofi Coburn break another one. Georgie broke the freshman single-game scoring record, and Kofi broke the single-game rebounding record, which I held as a freshman. To be able to celebrate that time with them on the floor, where everybody could take their pictures, but I felt like it was just the 2 of us as we were celebrating those moments together. To be able to hand that off to those young men, that would probably have to be the biggest. I might have to rank that above Michigan State. First and foremost, I appreciate you, Tyler, for doing this, for allowing me to be able to share this airspace with you. And I know it's getting a little loud in here because the Orange Crush is revving up, but there's a lot for me to be thankful for here at the University of Illinois. First and foremost is the opportunity. The opportunity to have been able to come here to be able to share this with my family. I've mentioned multiple times in interviews how my coming to the University of Illinois not only changed my life, but it changed the life of my family. My brother's working on his second master's. I've had multiple cousins, go on to get their college degrees, whereas that's not what my family was about before I was the first in my family to graduate from college. But I'm not here if it's not for Jimmy Collins, Lou Henson, Dick Nagy, and the coaching staff that I played for. I don't think I put up the numbers that I did without those guys, and I definitely don't put up the numbers that I did without my teammates. So I still have a lot of those, if not all of those same friendships today. Unfortunately, 3 of my 4 favorite coaches have passed on, but I still have Mark Coombs here. But to be able to share that moment in time, which is a very special time in my life with those individuals, is a huge part of who I am and why I do what I do and why I love this university. And last but not least, you got to thank the fans. Because the fans, as my grandmother told me one time, they're the ones that make you who you are. They're the ones that come and see you. They're the ones that cheer for you. They're the ones that buy the merchandise because you wear it. So you have to give a lot of love and a lot of thanks to them because, Illinois is what it is because of the Orange Crush and because of the people that support us. So that's a big roundabout thank you to everybody that bleeds orange. Well, Tyler, trust me, the pleasure is mine, man. This ain't the last time. We got to connect more often. As I told you before, I want you to come on the pod because you cover Illinois sports, you cover high school sports, you cover all those things that I like to cover on Champagne on Ice. And I think it'll be a great time to be able to sit down with you again and then have me asking the questions this time.